Historical records indicated that the earliest immigration of the Chinese came from a few sailors in 1778 infected his army, or in 1788 China, and some in 1789 American traders settled in Hawaii.
By 1790, a handful of Chinese lived on the island of Oahu between the 1789.
Because the Chinese man had walked off and he did a long time. They didn't marry with one.
They became assimilated and created Hawaiian Chinese surnames like Papa and Hina, etc. In which words of Chinese origin are pronounced with a soft Hawaiian tone.
The practice of intermarrying with Hawaiian women continues well into the 19th century, though Chinese women are still a rarity.
Most of the Chinese immigrants
Though many and the contract was
The majority of marriages between Chinese men and white women in Hawaii were with Portuguese men. Portuguese and other Caucasian women married Chinese men. These unions between Chinese men and Portuguese women resulted in changing of mixed Chinese-Portuguese percentage called Chinese Portuguese. Portuguese parentage called Chinese Portuguese. For 2 years to June 30th, 1933 to 38, of these children were born. They were classified as pure Chinese because their fathers were Chinese. A large amount of mingling took place between Chinese and Portuguese. Chinese men married Portuguese, Spanish, Hawaiian, Caucasian Hawaiian, etc. Only one Chinese man was reported marrying an American woman. Chinese men in Hawaii also married Puerto Rican, Portuguese, Japanese, Greek, and California.
Excellent. So if you go to the last page, there's a worksheet. Guys, I'm going to be going over and correcting the sheet. Go to the last page of your packet. Make sure you put your name on it. We're going to watch a short video. The questions are in chronological order, so write down the answers, follow along the video. Follow along the videos and be pretty clear and concise. If you don't, go into the very last page. So if you can't see the screen, just turn on.
Mr. Tang, this one's Mr. Tang.
That's perfect. That's
Chinese immigration to Hawaii. Although the total Chinese population in Hawaii is 5 to 6%, Chinese immigrants share a long history with the island. The first encounter between China and Hawaii was in 1787, when a Hawaiian chief traveled to Guangzhou on a trade expedition. He brought back 50 carpenters who worked with King Kamehameha in plantations. Later, in 1802, Wang Se-chun, a Chinese merchant, arrived and planted sugarcane on Lanai. After several failed attempts, he successfully created a process to refine sugarcane, which shortly became a major Hawaiian export. This encouraged many Chinese men to immigrate to the island during the mid-part of the 19th century. By the 1880s, 20% of Hawaii's population was Chinese, totaling more than 25,000. Many Chinese men who did not marry locally went home to China after their contracts in order to start families. Although many families were left in limbo during the Chinese Exclusion Act in the early part of the 20th century, by the 1940s, relations with Chinese immigrants improved. My wife's grandmother, Jenny Cao, is one of many Chinese immigrants who came to Hawaii. Her father had immigrated to Hawaii in the late 19th century and later returned to China to start a family of his own and to claim family land. When my wife's grandmother was very young, her father died. Her mother and family feared she would lose her U.S. citizenship, and so when she was 12, they arranged for her to live with an uncle who remained in Hawaii.
That's her.
I was grew up in Tucson, Sebuehyong. That's my village, Sebuehyong. And up to I was 15 years old. Then I came to Hawaii.
Captains are all off the phone.
I love my family, my mother, my grandmother, and my father. Yeah, we eat, so like over here, we eat pork and dog, chicken, food, and rice 3 times a day. Sometimes in the morning, we eat soup in the morning. But we children, the whole village children take the cows out there. So the cows eat grass, and we children play over there under the mountain. Well, he helped the field, grow all kinds of stuff, like grow the lychee. We have a big garden from so many block. High school principal, and so he grew lots of Chinese lychee tree, so many lychee. So he hired, when the lychee in season, he hired a lot of people to pick the lychee in different villages, and we went to Macau and Hong Kong, and I was 9 years old. My father took me by bus, and after that, they have an ocean between to Hong Kong. So I oh yes. Only when they at home they speak Hakka. When we go out, we speak Punti. When we go to Chinese food, so on Punti. The most people speak Punti. Not too many people speak Hakka. I came here, my uncle said, you have to continue learn Chinese. You gotta go to Chinese school.
Okay, great. So moving on, the last paragraph talked about how the Chinese men ended up intermarrying with different ethnicities here in Hawaii. How many of you are of mixed Chinese and something? Raise your hand. Big mix. Okay, well, let's talk about Portuguese then. Portuguese in Hawaii. James, start us off.
Portuguese immigration to Hawaii began in 1878, when Portuguese residents moved west and
Madeira, and Azores, Azores, okay, sorry. The work in the sugarcane plantations rapidly increased the Portuguese presence in Hawaii, and by the end of 1911, nearly 16,000 Portuguese immigrants had arrived.
But everybody say Madeira.
Madeira.
That is, that's an island. If you look on the next page, you'll see Portugal on the side of Spain on the western front. It's in right there. No. And so if you look in the middle where the circle Azores is like a bunch of islands in the middle of the Atlantic, and a little south is Madeira, another island group. Next, next.
The Hawaiian,
Census.
the Hawaiian census of 1878 showed that out of a kingdom of 57,985 people, only 438 residents, which was less than 0.8% of the population were Portuguese.
Most of these Portuguese residents had been born in either the Cape Verde and Madeira Islands, and nearly all had arrived as sailors on Norwegian ships. Although a few of them brought or had sent to work their wives, one had made up only about 1/8 of this tiny immigrant community.
Despite the fact that prior to 1878, so few Portuguese had made their way to the Hawaiian Islands, those that did found opportunity and tended to stay.
Good.
Conditions in Hawaii in 1878 were conducive to immigration.
Pete Pellicott was recently sent to Hawaiian to encourage study by Europe and the growing Hawaiian society. These largely to increase trade and jobs in California, creating demand for labor to work the sugarcane plantations. Because Native Hawaiian workers have been decimated by the disease, there are not enough laborers to supply the sugar plantations, which led in 1852 to the first importation of Chinese workers.
So many Chinese were brought in that by 1878, they made up nearly 10% of the population.
Although the Chinese worked hard, they were accused of gambling, prostitution, and opium use, and the search began for alternate sources of living.
Just then, both the Hawaiian government and the taking orders to offer incentives and concessions came out and not giving the Chinese nor other Asian ethnic groups to attract against other Chinese who were willing to work in this country.
Jason Berry, a Portuguese settler who served as the Portuguese officer was instructed in 1878 to obtain the orders of the planting society, the master of the Hawaiian Society, that the Madeira and islands of Portugal might be ideal positions of reliable working.
Portuguese colonists had first settled these islands in the Middle Ages, and the terrain and subtropical climate were very similar to that of the modern islands.
More important though, sugarcane had been the mainstay of the economy there in the Azores for over 200 years, and most of the population were involved one way or another in sugarcane business.
John Phillips also a Portuguese ukulele singers of the Hawaiian Church in 1901. He was interviewed by Terry Silverstein. The Pioneer Society began recruiting Portuguese contractors, first in 1878 from the Madeira Islands, and then 2 years later from the Azores.
Several ships between 1878 and 1887 brought to Hawaii more than 3,300 Portuguese men from these islands. But because many of the men brought their wives, children, and other relations as well, there was an actual migration during these years of about 10,700 Portuguese, whereas contracts for the Chinese workers that pursued them generally stipulated single men only. The Portuguese were allowed to bring their families, and the incentive that the plantation owners hoped would provide stability.
Right, so and previously, when the Chinese were coming over, who came over?
Just the men.
didn't bring their wives or their families with them, but the Portuguese were allowed to bring their wives and their families. Why do you think they were asked to bring their wives and their children?
As an incentive for them.
As an incentive, so that there's no separation. What else?
So they stay.
So that they would stay. Good. Any other ideas? Right.
We plan on keeping the Chinese men on the island.
Well, they're trying to push them out, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to get more European
Wait,
workers.
let's just say they're like really hard workers, so like they're like you produce more workers, they have like more hard working men and like the Chinese think that they were like with prostitution, opium and gambling, they work harder.
So the plantation owners at that time didn't feel that the Chinese were.
I was gonna answer after.
They were feeling that the Chinese were not the most ideal plantation workers. And they wanted the so at the time of the Portuguese, who was dominating Hawaii in terms of the plantation? Who was the most present in the fields? Not the Japanese, but the Chinese. Right. Mr. Pinay, you were gonna add something?
I was just gonna mention something about the last question you asked about why did they bring their families? Was it, did you guys mention also, because I can't remember earlier, that maybe they were encouraged to bring their families so that they would not partake in a single man's lifestyle? Right? And a single man's lifestyle was, prostitution, drugs, and all that. If they bring their family, they'll be less likely to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Any questions about that section? Okay, let's move on.
Portuguese immigration to the island slowed after 1887, which was the same year that King Kalakaua was stripped of power, and about the same time that importation of other ethnic groups increased.
Nonetheless, Portuguese immigration continued, and by the end of the 1911, almost 16,000 Portuguese had arrived.
Unfortunately, the more affluent members of Hawaiian society tended to view these newcomers as inferior or low class, and growing resentment at being treated as second-class citizens resulted in many Portuguese later immigrating to the mainland United States, particularly California, in search of equality and opportunity.
Okay, everybody say affluent. What does affluent mean? Affluent, ruler.
The affluent money.
Money. Means well-to-do. Like, of possessing money and resources. So, why did the Portuguese immigrate to California? There was a level of inequality, so the Portuguese were like deuces. And then went up to California. Good. Next. Last sentence.
Though many left, many stayed, and by 1910, Portuguese residents made 11.6% of the population of Zulu.
No, I know already that. Immigrant culture and traditions. Native Hawaiian speakers of Portuguese immigrants who came to their country.
These newcomers were endowed with strong families. Most were short but slender girls and dark skin from long hours of working off and key skills.
Many, in fact, were so dark that their race on some of the early U.S. Census returns is listed as black, which contributed to prejudice against them.
Because few of these immigrants could read or write, they had strong oral traditions and they retained much of the culture and traditions they brought with them.
One popular Portuguese tradition in Hawaii today is making of masala, which is deep fried pastry similar to of New Orleans, that traditionally have no holes or filling, but are coated in grand related tradition.
They are first freed by Hawaiian residents from the Hara and Flores Islands, who were used up butter and sugar prior to 1900.
Terça Feira Gorda.
A festival also known as the Carnival that is the same holiday as Fat Tuesday or Mardi Gras elsewhere.
Fat
Its name really is Pamalgam, and it dates back to the time of the 19th century Spanish.
Okay. So how many of you know about Mardi Gras?
Ooh.
So Mardi Gras happens on
Down the rail and
is it Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday for Lent.
Listen, do you ever go to Mardi Gras?
Ooh, that's on boy. So Fat Tuesday is the night before Lent where Lent is where everybody has to be good, so Fat Tuesday is when everybody is crazy. You get that, Gemma? What thing happens on Mardi Gras?
Everybody getting flashed.
That all happens on Fat Tuesday, not on Mardi Gras. Lent starts on Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras is on the
It starts on Wednesday. Okay, next.
Another popular Portuguese tradition in Hawaii is the Holy Ghost Festival. Festa Espírito Santo, which since 1901 is celebrated each May and for great emphasis.
This 3-day event is not an official church holiday, but a traditional observance that began in the 18th century with the cult of Holy Spirit and its origin. It usually starts on a Friday night, followed on Saturday by decorating religious statues for the festivities to follow. Then on Sunday, a young woman is chosen as Queen Isabel VI, the sixth Queen of Portugal, and she and her court lead a colorful parade. The final event is a mass with a blessing of the meat and bread by a priest, after which